in grade 12. Who here has been to a Remembrance Day assembly? Well, I think a lot of us probably have, right? Yep. Now, I'm just going to come out and say it. When I was younger, I was, I will consider myself a little bit more enlightened now, but a bit more ignorant then. And I'll just say it. I thought that they were a little bit boring. I would be there on the Monday morning, and half the time I would just be happy that I didn't have to be in math because I didn't do my homework. So I'd be sitting there going like, "Woohoo! I'm not in math, getting in trouble." But then about 20 minutes into the ceremony, I kind of lost my focus, and I'd be sitting there going like, "Oh my gosh, I wish I was in math." And then we also had. When they make you stand up for the moment of silence, I think that's kind of unfair because they never tell you how long the moment is. They just give you an indeterminate moment, and we had a really patriotic principal make us stand there for 5 or 6 minutes. Not really, but still. It seems like that when you're a kid, and nowadays, all the students, they just reach into their pocket and pull out their phone and start playing Angry Birds or whatever game they're playing now, Candy Crush or something. I don't know. But nonetheless, this is a story about my last grade 12 assembly. I hope you appreciate it. Given our country's current political climate, it comes as no surprise that I can clearly recall a listless, misty gray November Remembrance Day and the 12th grade assembly, in which I chose to stay seated. Because I disagreed with the edict that stated that those who rose agreed with the purpose, method, and end result of all Canadian conflicts from the earliest formations of our great nation until that date in late '95. And now, I know and respect that all kinds of lives fell behind enemy lines, so I could exercise my right to stay seated in defiance of our oftentimes tiny-minded British nation-state that until 1984 continued to ignore its Aboriginal population's citizenship, with the exception, of course, of the duration of both world wars, during which it forced any Aboriginal wishing to fight to resign their status as an Indian, rendering him or her unable to return to the reserve upon completion of service. Armed with this knowledge, I'm sure you can imagine how nervous my great-uncle Magnus Henry was in the fall of 1946, as he approached not only the border of his northern BC reserve, but also 2 armed and mounted RCMP officers waiting with the local Indian agent, who calmly stated that while the Commonwealth thanked him for his dedication, he was no longer a member of the Haisla Nation, and hence had no home on this reservation. Now, I'm not negating immigration, but my people have a sacred and ancient tie to this proud land. And now this proud man who's being told that he had severed that rope when he rose and chose to become a Canadian. I doubt I have to elaborate on the irony implicit in this situation, but the fact of the matter is that from preschool through to the year of my graduation, I had either ignorantly or complacently played along, ignoring the wrongdoings and countless crimes that life itself sometimes committed. Luckily, in the fall of 1946, my grandfather and his other brothers didn't. They too were waiting for Uncle Mac to come back to Kitimat, bearing stories of war and glory, and that autumn morning, from among our sacred cedars, they emerged, armed to the teeth, and proceeded to purge that agent and officers of their clothing, weapons, and pride. Sent all 3 men riding back to town, bare naked, but alive, which is more than war has done for far too many of Canada's daughters and sons. As I was writing this poem, the 81st Canadian soldier died in Afghanistan. This man's name was Sergeant Jason Boyds. 32 years old, he was killed while on foot patrol in the Panjwai district of southern Kandahar province. Hailing from Napanee, Ontario, while I never knew the man, I imagine the passing of his life as known most by his wife Allison and young daughter Mackenzie. Light-hearted, quick to smile, and friendly, Jason got caught up in the frenzy of life and paid a price that far too many men with far more revolutionary eyes try and write an IOU for. This new form of war has left us constantly battling with ourselves, whereas once upon a time it was easier to tell good from evil because they ran in parallels. These days they run in packs, dashing forward and leaping back. Who's keeping track, who's wrong, who's right? It's all inconsequential next to the long arm of might. But right now as I sit here, I can't help but be proud of my country as a whole, and the freedoms that we've allowed the countless thousands that came here, hoping against hope, and found a damn close to just society that was gift-wrapped by men like Jason Boyds and my great-uncle Mac. And looking back, I realize that to stand in silent pride is to honor the brave that paved the way to today with their very lives. So now, with my right hand over my heart and proud, wide open eyes, I rise. Thank you very much.